All this podcast background music sounds the exact same. Okay. Hi, everybody. This is the She Plays Flag podcast, and I am Matt Mashburn. I'm going to get into it pretty quickly today. This was a little bit of a longer episode by just a few minutes, so we'll get right into it. But today you're going to hear from Coach Ramsey Lambert, the head girls flag coach at Santa Monica High School in Southern California. And it was a really, really interesting conversation. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. I know I did. Just a couple things to listen out for. Coach talks about they had 51 players try out for their very first season, and not a single one of them had played football before. So no background whatsoever, literally starting from the ground up. And then there was another time where he talked about in a game early on, one of the girls on Santa Monica had a pick six, and after she scored the touchdown, everybody just sort of ran over to the sideline, and that was it. They got ready for the next series to come in, and so no celebration whatsoever after a huge pick six. I thought that was a funny, interesting story to hear Coach tell how he handled that and made sure that it didn't happen again, and there were in fact celebrations in the future. So anyway, this is Coach Ramsey Lambert, head coach of Santa Monica High School in Southern California, and I hope you enjoyed listening. Welcome to another episode of the She Plays Flag podcast. Today I'm joined by Ramsey Lambert, head coach at Santa Monica High School in California. Ramsey, great to have you on. How are you today?
All right. Glad to be here, Matt. Thank you so much for having me on the program.
Why don't we just start off, just introduce yourself to the audience, how you got involved with girls flag football, athletic background, that sort of thing.
All right. Sounds good. I first started coaching actually varsity high school football when I was 19 years old, back in 2002 at Silverado High School. And I wasn't sure that was something I wanted to do, but I had an incredible mentor in Paul Gola, who really kind of showed me what football is about. I played football in high school, and I didn't really get to learn the lessons that football can really bring out for anybody who comes around the program, whether it's as a coach, manager, or a player. And he showed me a different side of that. So I was really inspired from then to kind of keep pursuing a football coaching career. So I coached a little bit in Southern California. I coached while I was at the University of Hawaii. I coached at a high school out there as well while I was a student. Finishing up, came back to California, coached at a few high schools as an assistant and as head coach. And also coached at University of Mary out in Bismarck, North Dakota as a defensive assistant at that NCAA D2 school. Before coming back to California, coaching again, tackle football, and took about 3 years off from coaching in its entirety, was just a strength and conditioning coach at Santa Monica High School. And they started to see if they had interest in a girls flag football team. I was actually tabbed to be one of the freshman assistant coaches under their new head coach at our school, Santa Monica. And I heard the girls didn't have a coach, and I was the strength and conditioning coordinator at our school. So I had a relationship with a lot of the other sports teams, the female sports. And I really kind of felt bad that the girls who I liked and grew fond of weren't going to have an opportunity to play this sport. And so I spoke with the head coach and said, hey, sorry, I'm going to have to bail on the season. These girls need a coach, and I feel like I don't want them to just throw somebody in there just to be a placeholder for them. I feel like I can do some things the right way, get them started and going. And then my intention was actually to pass it off to a female coach at some point, so they can continue that on moving forward and lead these young women at our school. And so that's how I got into it. And then I fell in love actually pretty quickly with the game, the pace of it, and the kids.
So, longtime tackle coach at both high school and the college levels. And then you said something there that kind of piqued my interest. They were looking at starting a girls flag program. Tell me about that. What does that look like, and what was the genesis of the girls flag program at Santa Monica?
Yeah, it's funny is I was just actually crossing the street to a soccer field to work out the girls soccer team. And there was a player on their team who used to be in my PE class just after COVID. And she mentioned to me that, hey, I got your email about the flag football team. And I was like, what email? I didn't send an email about flag football. She's like, yeah, you did. You sent an interest email saying if you're interested in girls flag football, would you try out? And I was like, that wasn't me. So I asked her to show me the email. She showed me on her phone, and I saw it came from one of the counselors. And so they were just trying to get on our campus, check the temperature with all the females on our campus if that was something they'd be interested in, because our governing body in California, CIF, was going to offer it as a sponsored sport in CIF. And so they sent that out, and then they got some decent feedback from the kids, and they couldn't find a coach. And I stepped in, and then they still weren't sure if we were going to have a program. So they had all these lunch meetings to really garner the interest on our campus. And they said, okay, well, we got about 40 girls who are interested in the sport. So I guess let's try to get this started. So I worked closely with the AD about launching this program. And we ended up having, I think, 51 girls at our first tryout. So that was my main thing was, are people actually going to show up to the tryouts?
Wow.
And so I was very nervous leading up to that point. But after a few lunch meetings, like, okay, I feel like we'll at least have 30 girls show up, which, that's more than enough for a team. And from there, we just got an assistant coach on our staff and, started to try to build that thing as you would any other program.
So 50 girls on the first tryout. I don't know how big Santa Monica High School is, but that seems like a lot to me.
Yeah, it was. Like I said, I was expecting somewhere around 30. And our high school population at that time was probably around 2,900. So we're fairly a good sized school. And I was excited to get those numbers up. But I feel like a good part of it had to do with I was already working with a lot of the athletes. And so they knew they were at least interested to see, like, what is this about? This guy's trained us at our practices. He doesn't know that much about soccer, but he's there supporting us at our games and helping us. Maybe this is something that they can be that they could be a part of.
Yeah, interesting because I guess that's probably much more conducive to getting girls to come out her first time. You had built those relationships, and obviously that paid off, getting 50 or so girls out there on day one. That's sort of like an embarrassment of riches, right?
Right.
So you had good attendance, good participation early on. How do you start a program, whether it's girls flag or anything? How do you start a program from scratch where nothing existed before? Well, like, what are those pillars you got to go after that are most important?
The first thing, and our school is over 100 years old. So I kind of felt a little bit of the pressure of, hey, if this is something you're going to start and it's an inception and it's going to be around possibly another 100 years, then we want to do things the right way. So the first thing I did was, look, we got to come up with a motto, and it was just set the standard. And so I wanted to make sure that we came in and this wasn't something that was just something to help pad college resumes. I know it helps their college resumes, but I know sometimes they want to try a bunch of different things just so when they send that college app out, the resume is fairly long, they could speak to on their bragging points. And so I was like, I want us to set a standard. I don't want us to be, a pit stop or a box check for people, because I know there's going to be people who are just sold on this sport or just want to compete and they weren't able to somewhere else. So we were going to set a high standard. And so we met for 1 hour every day, our first probably 2 weeks in a classroom, just talking about basic football terminology and expectations, because most of them, actually, there was 0 girls who had any playing football experience that made the team. And only a few of them actually watch football. So we literally had to start from what's a line of scrimmage? When I say move up to the line, what does that mean? What's a sideline? What's a first down? I created this dictionary and shared it in a Google Classroom and said, we have to learn these basic things because I'm going to say them early and often, and that has to become our language. So it was like teaching a foreign language from the very beginning. And so once we started to get basic knowledge down, then we had to kind of walk through a lot of things. We spent an hour chalk talking, gave them all a notebook. You write it down because that's going to help you remember it. Then you teach each other and we'll baby step all these things. Meanwhile, we're trying to fundraise and our ADs working with finding money to just buy footballs. We were using footballs and flags from our PE department that were oversized. They were like the high school boy size. And we were throwing those rubber footballs around, and we had no lines on the baseball/softball field that we were using. And so we're trying to get uniforms, trying to get equipment, and trying to get schedules. And we weren't even working on the schedule yet because we were like, hey, let's make sure all these girls stick around because we lost 4 early on. Let's make sure we have a team before we put people on the books. And so I think from starting from scratch and getting them to learn the terminology, letting them understand that I was going to be patient, having like 18 years plus of football vernacular running through my head, I had to make sure I slowed myself down and showed them that this was going to be a learning process for all of us because it was a different game for me as well, and that they can come there and they can make mistakes, and we'll learn this on the fly together for this first year. So I think that really helped out, really just kind of slowing, make sure we had the basics down, terminology, and what practices were going to look like, what our expectations on a daily basis were going to be. And that kind of catapulted us into, our first month. And then we were able to, start making strides once those pieces were in place.
I think that's vitally important, not just for girls flag, but any sport. Is you got to teach it first. How many times have you been on a football field and heard a coach say something to a player and get on to him for not doing something that they told them, and you're thinking, but they don't know what those words mean.
Exactly. Yeah, so we teach a different terminology when we run our fire zone. Was our base defense that we put in first. So I was like, we're going to be aggressive and we're going to, play this matchup fire zone. And I remember we just called them two droppers, and we say they get depth and width and vision over top of number 2, running under number 1. And then one time I was just like, hey, yeah, just make sure you're getting out there to the flats. And then I said it again and again. And then finally, one of our captains was like, Coach, what's the flats? Because I never said, hey, you're responsible for flats. I was like, you're a 2-to-1 dropper. And that's how they learned it. And then once you throw flats out, and some people like you would understand that because you're like, there's a flat zone, go cover it. And so even then we'd have to check ourselves and like, oh yeah, we didn't cover that. Yeah. Maybe it was in the dictionary that I created, but if we don't use it often, yeah, they won't pick it up.
So how did the girls respond to that early on, learning the game of football, learning what does it mean to go up to the line? How did they respond to that? And how would you compare that with the girls you have now?
So it was really great because they were so eager to learn this sport because they didn't want to be girls playing football. They were going to be football players, and that was it. And so the group that we had our first year, they were sponges to this. And since we only had one assistant coach and she wasn't there all the time to start, I had to teach them so they could teach each other. Because when you only have one set of eyes out there looking at 7 people spread out, it was, hey, you stand behind. Okay, if I call, we're going to just go formation rep recognition. We're going to go from dubs to dual. Okay, you stand behind and you just mirror what you do. And then so now they can see, oh, you're supposed to be over here. So now you're watching each other. So once I had them coaching and making sure that there was no such thing as you were not in on a rep when we started. We still do that too. It was, if you're not in, you're behind and you're coaching. So that was kind of gave us a little cheat code to help push us forward a little bit quicker. And I'm very glad we did that because they wanted to learn it because they wanted to teach the girl who missed that day. And they were excited to be that person who could, in our sisterhood, put their arm around them and say, hey, right here, you're the 2-dropper, or on trips, you have to go to the other side. And this is why. And so that was very helpful. And so we talked about it all the time when our seniors were leaving. It's like, man, remember when we started, we didn't know what a line of scrimmage was. And now we have our first freshman class this year. We actually had our middle schools have flag football teams in 2024. So our 2025 freshmen this past year, they actually had some experience. And so there was a learning curve that we could just jump over now. And of course, we had some girls who were still very new to the sport, who didn't play middle school because they were playing another sport. And so, but we had all these other people who had the answers to that. Instead of just me and one other girl or the assistant coach, it was, now our program is 47 girls. We can have our captains, we're going to go coach the JV, and you guys are going to get them in the right spots. You have eyes on them, and then you help them get caught up to our terminology, because it is a lot of what we do, but we have short terminology, but that allows us to be expansive on both sides of the football. And so being able to have those girls with experience now coming in that 1 year, I see that's advances so far up to where we had, I think, 5 freshmen play meaningful minutes in the playoffs this year, and trying to win that league title. So that was extremely helpful to have those girls come in there with just a little bit of experience that 1 year.
Wow, 5 freshmen. That's I think that's a testament to the education, right?
Right, and I think our inclusivity too just made it us a program that people wanted to be a part of. And that experience allowed those girls to be confident with what they were doing coming in. And then because of our inclusive leadership, that our seniors and juniors and sophomores who were returning at our high school level, they trusted them to help teach them. And where they were not going to say okay with it, but they were very supportive of someone actually losing their job because someone was able to execute that better if it helped our program in its whole. We actually had one of our freshmen was all league, first team linebacker. And so that was, again, a lot of that goes to our junior and senior leadership who was like, hey, Raj, this is how you do it. This is going to help us be better. So let's get her better.
Which is something I don't really think about a whole lot. In the early days or the first season of a program's life cycle, there aren't juniors and seniors there on the team already who can bring the freshman and sophomore along with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're starting from a completely blank slate.
Right. And that was like our first year. We didn't have a single freshman on our team the first year. And we might have only had like 2 or 3 sophomores. And so we actually, after our championship season, we lost 12 starters and 14 seniors. So, and then that led us into our 2025 season where it was great that our freshmen did have some experience because we lost a plethora of leadership to the year prior.
I mean, those players are your future proof, right? That's how you future proof the program is if you can get a couple of them who can be a little bit like coaches on the field. That's like supercharges a program year after year.
Absolutely.
For sure. What about early days? What was the support like? What was the feedback or what was the talk around in the school community?
I feel very fortunate. We had our parents were amazing. Right away, they were stepping up to volunteer. We had an amazing team mom and my parent council that worked with our team mom to really just support our program on the outside. Because I gave our parents a list at our first team meeting, like, here's all the things I want to provide for your girls and our program and what we can do. But that only can happen with your support. And if we can't we can't get those support, that's okay. We'll just have to sacrifice some of the either time constraints that it would put on me, or the funding. And they said they were all in. They were super excited to help fund a lot of things we wanted to do in our program. Our first year, our administration jumped in and just said, "Hey, here's 25 uniforms." Luckily, we actually got a donation that our athletic director applied with the NFL and the LA Rams because they were giving out equipment packages to get these teams started. So the NFL and the Rams, they sent us our first set of footballs and flags, which we still have some of those flags, and cones and even pylons for our end zone. And so that was very helpful. And then our community, I can't tell you, we might be the most popular team on campus. Our branded logo here is the most worn logo on our campus. So many people want to support our game. They're so proud of what our girls have done in such a short period of time. And they're great girls too off campus inside the classroom. And so that school community support from our superintendent all the way, he's come to games, and our AD and our principal coming to our championship games and playoff runs, our local newspaper, and just our middle school started coming to our games when they didn't even have a team. They're just like, "Whoa, there's a flag football team. Let's go check this out." So that support was very crucial when it came to us getting started, and it really helped catapult us, I think, and shave some sweat equity that I would have to put in, which is great.
Just listening to you talk about those early days, it's clear that you were very intentional about building the program. I think you should do that with any program, but particularly in something very early in its life cycle like girls flag football, to be intentional. I think that is important. What does girls high school flag football look like in California? How is it structured across the state?
So I think we have like 9 sections or something in all the state of California. We're a part of the largest section, the southern section. And each section will then, you belong to that section, but you can play anybody. And then first year we didn't have playoffs. Now that we have playoffs, the last 2 years, you're supposed to, form a conference or a league. And if you can't form a league, then you have to schedule X amount of games to qualify for a chance to get into the playoffs, depending on your record. And so what's interesting about our sport is you'll see, luckily we're in a very high populated area. So our league was able to get, pretty much stay similar to what our other sports programs on our campus are. But there are some leagues and some areas where I used to coach in California where they're spread far apart because they're the only team in that whole area that has a team. And so they have to join a league from far away, or they don't join a league, but they're traveling all over the place just to get games and going to every tournament to reach that number at a chance to get to the playoffs. And then so our rules are very similar to most other sports. It kind of depends on how many teams are in your league. That'll dictate how many make it to the playoffs. So I think we have 7 or 8 teams in our league. So we're guaranteed 3, and we can get like an at-large bid if you have a decent record. And our playoffs, I'm not sure how they do it out in Georgia, but we've instituted competitive equity in a lot of our sports in California, to where they have a formula almost like the old BCS of strength of schedule, strength of victory. And then they put all these numbers together, and then you get a ranking in your section. And then they kind of just start chipping away at, Division I gets a 16-team bracket, and all the other ones get a 32-team bracket. And then you can go to the playoffs. So we'll have 3 teams from our league. I think we had 4 from our league go last year, and all of them went to a different division. So none of us would have ever met in the playoffs.
So the other programs, the other teams around you, are you close with those programs, close with those coaches? Just being so early on in girls high school flag football competitively, do you guys collaborate?
Yeah, we do. That's a great question. I was just texting another coach, Coach Kaiser at Miracosta High School in Manhattan Beach, and today, and we play them every year. Redondo Union High School, they're a really strong program. They actually had a club team before it became an official sport, and I didn't even know it existed. When I found out it existed, I found out they were playing already, and I was like, wow, that's cool. They already had a team. And so we schedule each other every year. We see each other. We're always hugging it out. And because it was very difficult to find games early on. And so you really had to develop some of these connections with these coaches to find out, hey, who did you play? Because we need to find some more games to add in the season. And then when the season was over, you were lucky enough to find some online clinics through Glazier, and then there was another one I went to up in Reno. This past year, I spoke at a few too. And so I was able to meet coaches from Nevada and Arizona, and just some other coaches from Wisconsin through the Glazier clinics. And now, I'll probably won't go 3 days without getting an email, or I'm emailing one of them saying, hey, what did you end up doing when you got 2 rushers? Like offensively, did you use 2 screeners, or you just release one? And so it's this ongoing collaboration, especially because we're not all the same season. We play in the fall. There's teams I know that play in the winter. Like I think Nevada's a winter sport. And then a lot of them are spring sports. Like in Hawaii, a couple of coaches I know up there are spring. And so it seems like the collaboration never ends. Florida is spring too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's great to get to know these guys. And we're a part of the NFL Football Foundation, LA chapter as well. And that's right. They were nice enough to add girls flag football to their what's it called? Scholar Athlete Awards. So the NFL Foundation now usually they have for boys football. Immediately they added flag football as soon as they had it. So they've already had it for all 3 years since we've existed. And so through that, we've been able to meet a lot more coaches too at these events that they'll put on at Top Golf or at SoFi. And so it's been great to get to know all these coaches and continue to compete and see them at camps and tournaments, and and play them and lose to them and go to overtime with them. It's all a good time with all these coaches. But everyone's been very receptive to just learning from each other and competing.
And I think that's sort of that can be sort of a secret sauce for states who are very early on in girls flag. I know in Georgia, I spoke with Coach Jake Bergdorf. He's the head coach at McEachern High School, a top program here in Georgia. And he actually started what they call the Georgia High School Girls Flag Coaches Association. And I'm
Yeah.
not sure sort of what the official, standing of it is, but I know that it is a way for them to collaborate and communicate as the state of Georgia is building up this sport. The infrastructure and the teams and the formats and that sort of thing. So, I've been telling people that anybody who will listen, coaches out there, work with other coaches. You know, two sets of hands are better than one in really promoting and building the sport up. So I think I always ask about that collaboration because I think it is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love sharing and just, I'm a football junkie. So when we come up with new stuff or I see something different, I'm like, whoa, is there a read on that? Or are you guys just calling it and going? I want to know because that was nice play.
Yeah. Well, so I'm a football junkie also. Football, I'll argue till the day I die, football is America's game.
Mhm.
What is it that attracts girls to the sport? Just over the past few years, I mean, it's just been like exponential growth. Flag football has always existed. I knew about it when I was a kid decades ago, and I've heard about it. But it just seems like all of a sudden the light got flipped on, and there's just a mass rush to get involved in this sport. What is drawing girls to the sport?
It's probably really difficult to pinpoint, but so far, from what I've learned is I feel like it provides an opportunity for girls who you can still excel in one sport and be good at flag football. So, like, well, if I'm good at soccer, maybe I'm going to be good at flag football, and I can play. I could be a dual sport athlete. Um, but our very first year, a lot of the people who made our team were girls who used to play another sport and they no longer wanted to play that. They either got burnt out from it or younger girls started beating them out on the team. And so now they were falling on the depth chart. Girls who wanted to focus on other things at different times of the year. They don't want to give up their Christmas break or their spring break. So I feel like there's various reasons. And it was really cool to find girls who didn't play sports at all ended up making our team, playing for 3 years and being high contributors on one side or both sides of the football. And so that's what kind of blew me away. Our very first quarterback, she used to be a soccer player and she just stopped playing soccer, was just a student until this came along. She's like, oh, I'll go be the quarterback. Let me just do it. And then she's two-time league MVP and, our section player of the year. And so I think it just offers a different platform for those girls. And what's good about us having it in the fall, which I highly recommend, is at least for in California, is that we only compete with volleyball and tennis when it comes to other sports. If we were to do it in spring, we would be competing against basketball and soccer. That would have been, 80% of my first team.
Yeah.
And then if we do it in the spring, we're competing with track, and we lose a bunch of girls that we compete with track and lacrosse. And so,
And really,
I
you
think
want
for
you
us,
want your girls running track, right?
exactly. So
Yeah.
that's where they are now. I only have like 8 girls who aren't. So the other 30 are doing track or lacrosse or basketball, soccer right now. So we want to, go get faster and, go socialize in a different realm and be a leader somewhere else, spread what you learned here and
Yeah.
share it with other people. And so, I think it's just a different type of platform for girls and also different types of body types. I always love football because you can look at an NFL roster right now, see an offensive huddle, someone's 6'8", 330, and then you got someone who is 5'5", 175. You got Tutu Atwell playing wide receiver at 170 pounds next to 6'8" guys. So it allows for diversity. And I think that helps with body positivity. Like, well, I'm not tall enough to be this type of athlete. I'm too big to be this type of athlete. Where now that we can screen in our game, it opens up the gates for a lot of opportunities for girls.
Yeah, we can find something for you to do on the football field. There is a role for all athletes in football. It's fascinating to me that girls who don't play other sports come into flag football and fall in love with it. These girls probably grew up watching football, but there was never an outlet for them to play. And as soon as that outlet showed itself, man, they were running for the door, which is I don't think I've seen that in any other sport where someone who hasn't had a background, didn't grow up playing it, jumps into it and is now full on.
Yeah, a real quick story is we have very few seniors coming in next year, and one of them, Rosie, she was a swimmer, And I was actually outside with my weight training class, and there was another ninth grade PE class, and they so happened to be doing a flag football unit. And I kept looking over there and seeing this girl with really long hair just running past in this co-ed PE. She's running past these boys and housing the ball every time she touched it. So I had to go ask that PE teacher, hey, who's that girl? She's like, oh, Rosita? Yeah. I was like, man, she needs to try out. She's like, oh, I'll talk to her. And so, well, I talked to her. I don't know. She's like, well, I try out. Yeah, maybe. She tried out, made the team. And as a junior this year, she was all league. And she's like, oh, I might try to go back to swimming. She was a swimmer who wasn't on a swim team at the moment, but all of a sudden she's an all league linebacker for us. And it's, again, really cool. And probably another reason why girls, it's like, wow, that swimmer did it. That water polo player did it. That, I could do it.
Maybe I'll show up. Maybe I'll play. Maybe I'll be all district. Who knows?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Right.
So going back to the development of the program, get through season 1. What did the off season look like between 1 and 2?
That was really interesting. I'll tell you, we had 9 girls who were on the basketball team. And we only had 1 senior, and then other girls in other sports. So as soon as our season was over, there was only 3 girls that were left in my flag football class that we have at the end of the day. It was our quarterback, it was a sophomore, and a junior wide receiver. So there was just 3 of us. But meanwhile, all those girls are getting footwork and cardio and strength training while they're at the basketball with the basketball team. They're competing. And I'm just going to those games and supporting them, like away games and home games. I'm like, wow, I know all of those girls going and watching soccer. So we really didn't have an off season. I didn't see our team again until May. We got a few girls back in like April, and then another few back in May, but we still didn't have our track girls yet. And so we had tryouts again in June. And that's when we really started to get after it again. I mean, we did some weight training, but again, I had 3-4 girls. And I was also helping the beach volleyball teams. There was no space for us to do anything. We were doing tennis ball drills and just random corners of places outside. And there wasn't a whole lot that first year compared to the year previous, but it's a lot different now what we do in our off season. I have a few more girls that stick around. But yeah, there was no off season. I really didn't do anything flag football except for kind of teach myself exactly. Plan stuff.
So how about you'd mentioned the youth and the middle schools. Tell me what that looks like. Is there an established feeder program in where you are?
So what's nice for us is that after our first year, there was a sports director. They were trying to get middle school sports going at both of our middle schools. And that year they did have flag football, but it was co-ed. And I think each middle school had 1 girl who was willing to stick it out and stay with them. A lot of them went out. They're like, I'm not playing with the boys. And so a couple, I think 1 from each school stayed on the team. And then so once we had that team, one of the dads was a teacher at the middle schools. And he said, oh, I'd love to get a middle school, because he had 3 daughters who were at the middle school. He's like, I'd love to get a girls flag football team all here. I was like, well, you guys should. So we talked to the director, and he was happy to do it if they had the numbers. And so then it just became, pumping information out on their campuses. So luckily I didn't have to do it. They were doing all of it. I didn't know what the feedback was like. They were sending the emails out that I was like, hey, you have to word it that there's going to be a girls flag football team. Don't say there's maybe, or there might, or if we get the numbers, because once they hear that, it's like, well, there might not be it. So why would I waste my time trying out? They don't want to waste 2 hours of their time. And so they did. They pumped it out like there's going to be a girls flag football team. All of a sudden, like our Lincoln Middle School, I think they have like 20 something. Actually, you know what? They only had about 6 girls. And then our other middle school had about 20, John Adams. And then so they knew they were going to have a team. And the coach of the Lincoln was just all the girls in his class. Hey, you play soccer. Come play. I'm going to coach. And so he had that rapport with girls as well. Plus, again, he had 2 daughters now at the school, and one was now going to be a freshman with us. So he used his daughters to bring in other girls. And so he slowly built it up to, I think, 18 in the first year. And so, but now today, I went to their games previously, John Adams, Jams, they have 2 teams. And one's coached by a current boys player at our school, and then one who just graduated. And the varsity team is coached by another staff member there. And Lincoln Middle School, that same dad, Coach Mo, he's got about 25 girls playing now. So they have no problem getting bodies to come play flag football now, and it's really cool that they have that going.
And one of the boys high school players is helping coach with the feeder teams.
Yeah, so they have like a development team and a competitive team or a JV at a varsity, however you want to call it. And I saw him there, and I was like, "Oh yeah, you guys doing a good job." And then all of a sudden, at sixth period every day, he's coming over to me. He's like, "Hey, what do you guys do when a team comes up in those tight formations? Because like we try to tell them force, but they don't understand force." And I was like, "Oh, you got to term it different, okay? They don't understand force. So how can you get them to understand to keep the ball on their inside shoulder? Okay, so you have to figure out what's going to work for them. Ask them. I'll do that all the time. How can we remember this play name? Because I like to keep all of our play names 1-2 words max. And they'll say, what if we call it this? And if I don't like it, I'll tell them. It's like, I don't like that. Then how does that relate? And then if they come up with something good, like, yeah, let's call it that. So it's like, ask your players what do they want to call it? Or what would make them understand that for them? And so it was pretty cool to collaborate with those guys. He was coming sixth period. Oh, how do you do this? What do you do that? And he'd be pumped. We got a victory. He fist bumped me. Said, we got a W, coach. Are you proud of me? I'm like, yes, I'm super proud. Keep it up.
So those are just, and the reason that kind of stuck out to me is like one of the reasons that I'm just so interested in girls flag is because I see the potential of opportunities that it can create. Just on its surface, opportunities to play ball, opportunities for girls to play ball and they couldn't play before, opportunities beyond high school. When these girls high school players now, when they leave high school, whether they go and play in college or not, which now they can competitively, when they come back, that's the next generation of coaches, right? And so those are just more opportunities. And I think just all around the game, you need coaches, you need support people, you need people in the community, and a new sport gives more opportunities to play those roles, I think.
Absolutely. And we do a good job of I do a good job of keeping in touch with our alumni girls. I keep them involved in what we're doing with our program because they were the pioneers and I want them to be involved. I asked them, can you each send a short video before our last league game? Because I was going to decide the league championship and it was a tough one. Just, give them that confidence that you had. And minutes later, I was getting videos sent to me and we made a little cut up and showed it to them for that support. And we want to keep them close with their sport. They come to our games. They're giving me stuff on the sidelines. Hey, that number 2 defender is just staring at our quarterback. You can take a shot on her. Okay, great. But the other thing is I got reached out on Instagram. I don't live near where I teach. It's 30 miles away and, LA traffic. So it's like 90 miles away. And I got a message from a parent who said, their daughter wants to play flag football and, but she wants training in the off season. I was like, well, I really don't want to drive there to train one girl. So I was like, hey, I might have some players who are interested. Would you be interested? And she's like, yeah, get me in touch. So I reached out to a few of our past players who are going to college locally and said, hey, would you be interested? Got one of our players in touch. She's been training her. She's making good money and helping this girl and she's enjoying it. And the mom couldn't be more happier, with the results that she's seeing and the joy and love that girl is developing for that sport. And so I can only see a lot of these ex-players. I hope one of them come take my job. Not even one of my players. If there's someone who wants to come, be an assistant and then take it over. That was my original plan. I wanted to give it to the assistant coach, but she ended up taking another job somewhere else. So I was like, but I'm more than happy to pass it off because I believe that women are going to be leading this sport as the coaches, and they're going to take it over, and they rightfully so because our female coach was phenomenal, and we haven't been able to replace her since. So we'll be looking for that next person to come in and just take the reins and make it yours. Don't do what I do. Just make it yours. Take it and run with it.
Yeah, and that's I don't want to be controversial or anything, but just one thing that I've noticed is there aren't enough, seemingly to me, enough female coaches, and which I get, right? That's natural. If you're looking to start a new program and you need a coach, well, where's the first place you're going to go? But which is all well and good, and I think that's great. I think football coaches are some of the most capable people on the planet, just given all the things that are on any given coach's plate at any given time. But the one thing that does miss is it's a different understanding for the game to have played it versus not. I'm very excited about this next generation of girls coaches who are going to come cycling through because it's a different game. Not to mention just the innovation that I think that a new set of eyes on the game can bring to it, right? A lot of times coaches are bringing what we've understood from the football game as we've learned it all through our lives. And a lot of times that kind of walls us off from learning new things. Well, if you're taking a girl in high school and she's never played football before, she's learning it as she's playing it. She has new ideas that maybe you didn't have. And I'm really excited to see that evolution of the game.
Yeah, same here. It was what's really cool about just teaching them the basics for the ones who weren't up to date on, football terminology, vernacular, what do you want to call it. Once they start to get it, our experienced players would come to me constantly saying, why do we do it like this? Because she's kind of in my way if she goes first. What if I went first? And I'm like, do it. You're out there on the field.
Yeah.
I tried to take that same approach to the boys, but you're out there doing the thing. I'm not. Like you talked about, like running things that we did before. I would run against, a too high. I'm running double slants on both sides. I ran that in the very first game of our existence. And the two inside slants ran into each other because we were only practicing half line. So I never even got the opportunity to know that, oh, wow, the field is that thin to where the two inside receivers can run into each other. And so it was great when you teach them, and again, they're so eager learners, and the egos are just not there, at least yet. But we don't have any ego issues to where, when they say something to me, I take it for exactly what it's worth because I know they think that's what's best for them or for the player, for the success of the team. And so I'm trying to be as receptive as I can to the feedback that they give me when they come off the sidelines.
Yeah, for sure. And I was talking with someone recently who was talking about that exact same thing. That it's the feedback that he as a coach is able to get on the sideline is miles above what he ever got from any of his boys players. Boys players would come off the field and they're most of the time, he said, their palms up. It wasn't my fault. It was his fault. But he says the girls come off the field and it's immediately, how are we going to do this differently? Or, hey, coach, guess what I saw? It just, kind of speaks a little bit to the differences between boys and girls athletes. What other differences are there? You've been on both sides of it, tackle and flag.
Yeah.
What are those big differences?
Well, I rarely get anyone come to the sidelines and just say, hey, I'm open. They're not covering me because we teach it a certain way, or at least I'd like to teach it a certain way to where if they got to say the right thing to me for me to understand that they're open. So boys will say, were you open? Yeah, I was open. And I'm like, a girl comes to the sidelines, she's like, hey, every time I pass the number 2, she just continues expanding. Say less. We're going to run that curl. Just stop.
I know what they're doing. Yeah.
Very next play. Yeah. And they say, oh, I ran right by her. It's like, oh, hey, that girl's playing trail on me. Got it. That makes more sense. Okay. Because it's hard to make those things up, I feel like, if those things are actually happening. And it also shows me they're actually attuned to what the defense is doing or what the offense is doing. Hey, coach, can I play a little bit more shallow? I don't think this quarterback can throw it deep. Absolutely. Move on up. But you get that feel for the game, the quarterback, the flow, where they're trying to go with it. I'm okay with that. And so, like, their feedback's the best. And we don't have an eye in the sky in our game. I'd love to have a headset, be able to talk to somebody, but I think that's why it was important in the very beginning to make sure they're speaking the terminology and they know the language, and then they're teaching it to other people. So then when they get that feedback, there's just all trust in what they have to say. And even if the next play it changes, I don't lose that trust for them. I'm like, oh yeah, because I made a bad call too. It looked open the last time and then came back. It wasn't this time. My bad. I'll own that. And they'll own it too. I'm like, hey, it's okay. Move. You saw what you saw. I trust you. And we're watching on film. Like, yeah, you were right. She changed it the next play. Maybe she got coached up. Hey, you didn't go with that motion. You got to go. So it's really cool to see that as a difference. The celebration part was funny for us that I noticed in the beginning, where we're extremely timid to be excited about each other's success on the field. And I remember the exact moment when I noticed it was we had our very first inter squad scrimmage from our first team, and we were recording practice from the camera. And I'm watching it, and I was reffing the whole game. They had scripts that they were just calling on offense, so I could just ref and spot the ball for them. And the first score of that scrimmage was the interception for a touchdown. And I went and I watched it back. And one thing that I got upset was the girl who scored the touchdown, not a single person went up to her and even gave her a high five. It was just like, we just ran a drill and we're going to run the next drill and the next play. And I took that as my responsibility, like, oh, I'm running my drills like this. I'm running that. I'm supposed to do this. She's supposed to do that. And then we just get back in line, or we just, it's my turn now, or on to the next, which I like, move on to the next. But I want us to love up the victories. And so that next practice was literally it was supposed to be a 10-minute segment, but it ended up being 30 minutes of party in the end zone. We're going to go on air, on offense. All 21 of you girls is going to score a touchdown at one point, and each one of you has to have a celebration. So I put it on the practice plan the day before so they knew it was coming. Plan your celebration. So we ended up spending 30 minutes partying in the end zone after every single score because they weren't used to getting hype over it. They didn't know when to get excited. And I was like, all right, we got to show them. And then in our very first game, I didn't realize it because the girl who scored the touchdown actually got hurt on the same play. But when we scored the touchdown, our entire team ran onto the field and partied in the end zone. Luckily, the refs were still getting used to it. They didn't throw a flag on us. But I thought that was super cool that they were like, oh, this is what we're supposed to do, right? You showed us this is how we do it. And I was like, okay, well, actually, we're supposed to, let's be respectful. We'll celebrate with our teammates on the sideline when they get there.
But we'll work on it.
Yeah.
Well, first, I love football coaches because just hearing you tell that story sounds like 1,000 coaches I've known. You identify a little problem and then you solve that problem in the next practice. And whether that problem is they're not celebrating or whether that problem is that we keep jumping off sides, you're going to find a solution to that. Football coaches always impress me with their creativity and problem solving ability. But second, as a coach, if I saw that, not celebrating and that sort of thing, the first thing I'm thinking is, oh, this is great. They know they got to do more. It's not over yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, the more you think about it, but that's why you're here. You're here to have fun. You're here to celebrate yourself and your teammates. That's a great story. That was awesome. So let's kind of zoom out a little bit on California as a whole. And I know we talked a little bit about the structure of girls flag in California, but so I guess it's been officially fully sanctioned for 3 seasons?
3 seasons, but we've only had championships for 2 seasons. Yeah.
Okay. And are you still seeing more teams coming online each season?
Oh yeah. So I think, don't quote me on these numbers, but we went somewhere from 80 to like 150. And then I think we doubled to like 3 something just in our section alone, to year 3. And even from year 2 to year 3, since the first championships, they had to go from 5 divisions to 6 divisions. So we're still seeing that growth and expansion. And as I mentioned, like some schools, the nearby schools aren't in their own league. They don't have a team. And I can only see how that's going to make a jump in certain areas where they're like, well, they did it. And you don't want to see girls transfer districts or parents moving their kids because their only opportunity is to go to this school to play flag football, especially if you're in a semi-rural area of California. So I can see that number jumping again this season.
And I would guess that the supply of potential players is going to exponentially increase with the inclusion of the sport in the 28 Olympics and the announcement from the NCAA last week that all 3 levels, D1, D2, D3, have all approved it as an emerging sport, which means if you get 40 teams to play, you can play a championship. So, if I'm an athlete and I see that and I see, wow, there is a new opportunity for me to potentially go to school and to go to college as an athlete, I want to jump all over that. Or if I'm a parent, it might be something I want to introduce to my daughter. So I would expect the supply of potential players to skyrocket because of those 2 factors that are very recent.
Yeah, that's going to be huge. And even before the announcement, it was pretty big. A buddy of mine has two very athletic girls who play soccer, and he just started to see all the tournaments he was going to. It was very saturated. He's like, for us, if my girls don't compete, they don't compete. He's like, but I want them to have opportunities to compete at other levels if that's the avenue they want to take. So it's like, you put them in flag football. I worked with them individually because that's, again, can be, now he's probably even more excited about it because there could potentially be scholarship opportunities by the time they're graduating high school in 5 or 6 years. And the growth of it already is only going to inspire more people because how quickly it's going to happen. And then when the 2028 Olympics, especially here, it's going to be here in Southern California. They're going to be playing it in our backyard here, right next to the USC campus. So it's going to be, it generates some more fans who actually get to see it televised because I think the World Championships, the finals might have been on ESPN2 or something, but not all the games were. Yeah, so finding them, you would have to subscribe to something else. But now it's just going to be right there on NBC or some other channel for you to watch, a new hero like the Ilona Mars of, rugby, who became a hero, and it's going to happen in flag football as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And with that kind of growth too, the ecosystem around the sport grows as well. And that can be good and bad. Whether it's recruiting services or exposure camps and all that sort of thing, which on the surface, a lot of that stuff is great. But I always caution people, just be very careful of what people are promising you.
Yeah, totally agree. And I'm seeing it now just on Instagram, just kind of exploding of all these tournaments or showcase ID camps that are coming up. And, even the club scene, how quickly it grew. And I knew it existed probably about 10, 11 years in Orange County and San Diego areas. But for the LA areas, it was fairly new. And the Orange County schools, it's different because the LA schools, we don't have space to practice. We literally have one turf field and a shared softball, baseball field, and that's it when it comes to grass turf space. Meanwhile, we got 27 sports and 3 levels of boys soccer, 2 levels of girls soccer, 2 levels of boys lacrosse, girls lacrosse, 2 levels of flag football. Boys got 3 levels of football, baseball, softball, and we're all sharing those two spaces. And so now it's interesting to see all these people pulling these camps down to Orange County. Is that going to, start taking from the pool of the LA girls to go down there? And all these camps are going every weekend. You got to play in these tournaments. And I'm like, well, I'm exhausted. That was a long summer and a long fall. And, if parents want us to play in a tournament in January and February, once a month, it can be tiring. And then when you get to those tournaments, they ran well. We went to a tournament and the halves were 12 minutes and we took 21 girls and we were struggling to find minutes to get girls reps. And it was 100 degrees. Wow. And I felt bad because it was like some girls got like 4 plays in like 3 games because the other team just managed the ball and the game was over like that. And so you got to pick and choose wisely where you go with your team, at least. Individuals, if they want to go do these ID camps, you can go. I can't go.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I started this podcast. And I say that the mission of it is to educate, advocate, and evangelize for girls flag football. The educate part, I think, is the most important because there are going to be so many new girls playing the sport, and so many parents who are trying to shepherd their girls through the sport. And I think it falls on the coaches to help them navigate this sort of new landscape of a new sport that maybe they're not used to and is not as established as other sports, because they can fall prey to the dollar grab. So I always make sure I want to talk about that because I think it is a responsibility of coaches to help educate and help parents shepherd their kids through the sport and through its development.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I want to go as kind of wrap up for a few minutes. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't talk about?
I guess something I think that's really important, especially when girls are starting a program or school is starting a girls program. And it's kind of something we touched on earlier was making sure we find right fits for the schools, which is going to be tough to do, like we said, because we're always kind of losing assistant coaches in our program because a boys' job opened up somewhere, and they would rather go do that. And that's why when we talked about having, the next generation of female coaches come along, that's something I'm really looking forward to, because not just for me, but for what it's going to do for other programs to really open up that pool of people who really love that sport and not Iowa's football. And this was a way to get back to football, or to keep me busy, or to get a teaching job somewhere within a district. And so I think administration needs to make sure that programs, when they're getting started, they get started the right way and at the right time. You may feel like you're rushed to get it going, but if you do it the wrong way, you don't bring someone who's got their heart in it and for the best intentions of building those foundations and those pillars up, and getting off to the right start, then you can really turn your entire community off from the sport to where they don't want to funnel. It's like, we'll just go back to soccer, or we'll go back to lacrosse, or we'll swim, and that could be detrimental. So just really paying attention to, and that goes with any hiring practices, I guess. So, but I think when it's something new, a new sport, that I think it's very, very crucial to get started off on the right foot.
And it doesn't surprise me at all to hear you say that, just going back to earlier in the conversation and listening to how intentional you were about building that Santa Monica program, getting it up and running. Well, as we do wrap up here, a couple of pieces of advice from you. So what advice would you give to a new coach to girls flag football who's never coached the sport before?
I would say make sure you have a plan, but be patient with your plan. Let the team's development dictate the install process. Because when I started, I had an install sheet that I ripped up pretty quickly, or deleted it off my Excel spreadsheet right away, because I knew that if I didn't slow it down to where they were, then we were going to oversee some things that were going to be crucial in the long run and hurt us. And so I wanted to make sure we weren't hurt by mistakes by that. I would have had to own up to that and then restart. So making sure that you let them dictate the pace first off. And don't be afraid to teach them. This is coming from a male aspect of coaching girls. And I learned this coaching JV basketball girls in 2012, I think, is don't be afraid to coach them. They want to be coached. So if you're a male coach, I think female coaches already understand that. But you may have that tendency to go in thinking, well, I have to deliver it differently. Yeah, maybe sometimes, but they want to be coached still, and they want to be treated like an athlete, and you want to teach them to be competitive because they're there for a reason. They want to compete. And so you got to help foster that, and guide them through that process of what it is to compete, and coach them to be the athletes that you envision for, and stick to that vision and process until you get them to where they need to be through this amazing tool of football that we have, that will give them lifelong lessons that will translate into so many different avenues in the future.
That's really good on the patience, meeting them where they are, and I think too, there are differences between boys and girls. We can't ignore that, but athletes are athletes and coaches are coaches. Athlete's job is to be an athlete. Coach's job is to be a coach. And so coaches coach them. That's what you're there for. That's what they're there for. And just like in any other sport, right? You coach the individual, and you learn the players. Who are they? What drives them? What motivates them? Is someone going to respond to getting in their face and yelling your head off? Maybe, most likely not. But you got to know that as a coach and meet them where they are. What about for families, parents with children who are entering the sport maybe for the first time? What advice would you give to them?
I would say it's just kind of like any other sport. Just be supportive. I actually give a parent handbook out. It's got these 10 commandments on it that I don't even remember where I got it from. I stole it from some other coach. And it just really is just finding ways to be extremely supportive, especially if it's a new sport for them. If it's a new sport for them, then there's going to be growing pains. And especially if you're a fan of football or if you watch football, we may think that we have this idea of, what our daughter should look like, or our child or niece should look like while they're out there. But like we talked about, meet where you are is allow them to go through the process of learning this sport at their speed, and just support them, as you would want to in any other activity that they may participate in. Um, and also to be mindful of the people who are talking to them about, you need to do a club, you need to do this. You really don't need to do anything if you have a good program and a coach that cares for your daughter at the school that they're at. That will be enough. I know we've had some players go to ID camps and they're like, what club do you play for? I'm like, I don't play club. They're like, you need to play for a club. And they're like, coach, why don't you have a club? And they're like, I feel this pressure, but you don't have to. I want to push them towards other sports to be able to grow. I encourage the multi-sport athlete. I was a multi-sport athlete. So just be there to support them and support the process. Make sure you're on the same page with what the vision of that program is headed, and enjoy the experience. Our parent fans were amazing. They were traveling to every single one of our playoff games, our away games that are 102 degrees and 2 hours away. They would go, they would televise the game on an app for the parents who can't go. And they're the loudest fans, even though there's not that many.
Yes.
They are super loud and proud. Our games were electric because of the energy from the kids who come to our game. And we get boys football come, and they're losing their minds off of the RPOs that we do, and the flood routes that we're running, and the screenplays, and they're like, "Whoa, we got to run that!" And then so they bring the energy because of the pace of the game. So enjoy that experience along with them, and just give that support, that unconditional support that you want them to succeed, and whatever their role is with that team, let them know that you're behind them the whole time.
It's a great community. I'm learning that, and it's a lot of fun. So I think that's a great place to end, Coach. I really appreciate you coming on. It's clear that you have you got a passion for the game and a passion for football in general, which we all love. But I've learned a lot, and I know that this is going to be great for listeners.
Thank you for having me. This has been awesome. Like the football junkie, just talking football, hearing about football. It's just so much fun. I'm glad that there's people like you out here to help, illuminate or set some light on, what's going on in different parts of the country, and then soon the world with flag football. So I think it's really, really cool that you're doing this, and I thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, we're in a great time of this sport. We're at the vanguard of it, and we get to watch it grow into what it's eventually going to be that we all know is coming. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and love to talk again if you're open to it. I'll reach back out in a few months and see how things are going. And I tell you what, again, I'm learning the game. I'm trying to translate my tackle football knowledge to the girls' flag world. I would love to sit down and actually talk some X's and O's.
Let's do it. I got some slideshows. I got film cut-ups. We're doing it all over here. And
well, I
got a couple
about half one of your Glacier clinics.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, that was really good.
Also, I actually have joined the USC's coaching staff, part of their developmental team, that before it becomes an official sport at USC, their club team. So that's going to be fun too, to work at the college level with some of these girls and these amazing other coaches in here in Southern California. So that could be more developing news coming over here these next few weeks as well.
That's awesome. Can't wait to hear. All right. Well, again, thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to you soon.